Hey, good late morning, everybody, and welcome to another screaming rendition of Fox 29 Good Day Philadelphia Uncut, the show. It's always shot on a cell phone except for today, which is a day that I'm really beginning to start to question my career choices for the simple reason that I'm looking at the toy that I have to play with cross-referenced with the toys that Drew Anderson has to play with. What is this, Doppler 77,422? You all are, Drew, I don't even know where to begin with you, man. I don't know what I'm more amazed at, his energy or his technical acumen.
I brought the energy. I brought the sunshine, Ty, and I'm bringing the sun in the weather.
This is the guy that had car problems earlier today, guys.
Story.
Listen, bring it in. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on this show. You're the best there is. Bring us up to date on Milton. Where are we? I've been on other things. I've had a fire this morning. I had a hit over to do in West Philadelphia. I was also griping about the Phillies, last night as well. So all kinds of things, but not the hurricane this morning. Bring me up to date and the audience as well, although I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience are very much up to date with it.
I just want to take a look at this monster. Let's turn it over to old Doppler radar. You know, some stations, they do Doppler radar 3000, all that. Because, back in the 90s, it was all about, you have the best Doppler radar. Everyone's got one.
Gear.
We're going to have the best.
Let's watch the station with the coolest radar. Yeah.
They're all the same. You know what I mean? There's no different technology. The name doesn't matter on the Doppler radar. It's all the same technology. Everyone around these parts, we all have the same radars that's coming from the National Weather Service.
You just need to have the better meteorologist. Cheers.
Yeah, listen, I'm not throwing any shade at Oldman Doppler radar. It's about how you display it. So let's take you to Oldman Doppler radar. And this is that monster right there, rolled in as a Category 3, which means its winds were not as strong as it once was when it was just cooking in the middle of the ocean. What I want you to watch is when this goes back, you're going to see a little bit of a donut hole. So right now, there's not much to it. This is a 24-hour loop, and see how the green's kind of disappearing as this thing kind of fizzles out and goes back in the Atlantic right there. But when this restarts, you're going to see that little donut hole kind of right in the center. You see that?
Yeah.
When those are really tight, when it's like a perfect circle, that's a strong storm. Notice what you don't see. It's not really a great circle, is it?
It's loosening up a little bit, maybe losing some of its concentration, some of its integrity.
And that's exactly
That's what we want, I guess, isn't it? It's a weaker storm.
Right, and that's why it wasn't as bad when it came inland on spots. I have one of my best friend's moms. She lives down in Tampa. She was going to zoom in with us, but she's sick with COVID. Can you imagine going through this with COVID?
Losing your power while you've got the COVID in the house. And Charlie, I've had it twice. It's enough to live with. Have you had the COVID?
Probably. I mean,
Dodge
I
it,
but
probably. Dodge it if you can.
Now, I'll say this to that. So she's sick as a dog. She was before this came inland, and then she chose not to leave. She was in the mandatory evacuation zone. She didn't want to leave, and I respect anyone's decisions. As long as you have all the information, if you make the decision not to leave, that's okay. I wouldn't do that, but it's just I respect her, and I was like, cool. You'll be fine. Best of luck to you.
Well, it's also, I think it's an issue of practicality. I'll give you an example. My friend Nick, who I've been friends with since I was a teenager, he lives in Orlando. He got a tree down on the roof of his house.
Oh, wow.
It didn't wreck the house. It hasn't even, as far as he knows, really damaged the roof. But what he said it did do is create a situation where he feels like the house is compromised until he gets the tree off of the roof. And he's also got Milton coming in right now. And I talked to him last night.
Yeah.
He told me it's nothing but hard rain right now. But I'm hoping that he actually dials in because I'm counting on him to zoom in with us. He might have gotten cold feet, or maybe he's got wet feet, to be honest with you.
Depends where you're at in terms of some of that. So here is Milton right now. It's still a hurricane. Now it's off the coast of Florida. Look, not a whole lot of rain left at this point in Florida. And the strong winds at this point are pretty much off the coast of Florida. But to your point, these things have strong winds. Category 5, the winds are over 150 miles an hour. To me, I see more of an issue as the flooding, the storm surge.
Oh, yeah.
And that storm surge, if you're not familiar, right, here's what it is. Those strong winds literally push the water like that. And when you have a wall of water, think of it like a tsunami.
It's like a mini tsunami, isn't it? I mean, not even a mini one, that's as much.
And that's where you see the biggest damage. It's this wall of water just comes in just like that, and it just knocks anything that's in front of it.
And ask any of the people, and a lot of you all remember Hurricane Sandy. That's what happened to a lot of the barrier islands off of New York City. That is a lot of what happened to our shoreline. That's why we had piers and roller coasters in the water. Hurricane Sandy, a ton of veterans. I still know places along the shore that are still recovering from Sandy. That's the kind of damage.
That's the power of these storms. To me, I don't get as concerned about the winds. I know those wind mounts sound crazy.
The water messes everything up, though.
It's the water. So you get damage like that. You're going to have flying debris. You could get broken windows. You could have stuff blow on to different buildings. I saw something in downtown Tampa where there was like a crane that went into a building. So you're going to get debris from the wind, but the structures themselves, it's my understanding in Florida, they can really handle these strong winds. They're built for it from government, policy saying when you build these things, this is a reality of what happens in Florida.
I got a question for you, but I need a little, it's not an allegory, but a little bit of an aside. When I was a kid growing up in Goldsboro, North Carolina, the old legend, and the church that I went to had a steeple foundation, but it was flat on the top. And the old story was it once did have a steeple that made the church twice as high, but in the late 1930s, Hurricane Hazel, and you're going to have to trust me on that if you don't know your central North Carolina or eastern North Carolina.
Hold on a second. Do you have hazel eyes?
No, I got brown eyes, baby. I'm a brown-eyed handsome man like Waylon Jennings.
No, hazel's brown, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
I was trying to jump in to help paint the story, but
we got to take a break in a minute. But the question I got to ask is: technology moves. A lot of people died in that hurricane simply because they didn't understand the concept of the eye of the hurricane. Yet a lot of people thought it was over all of a sudden, when the fact of the matter was they were right in the middle of the hurricane. So they were going out and about, maybe starting to recover, and then the eye moves away. The rest of the hurricane resumes, and now you're out in the weather, and a lot of people died that way.
Wow.
We've learned a lot since the 30s, so it's almost 100 years.
Well, and to that point, it's all about the information. Florida had all the information they needed. If you wanted to evacuate, all that information days in advance. And that's the point of the new technology. It's that early warning time. So here's what I want to do. When we come back, I'm going to show you some pictures and some videos. So first of all, this is a live picture from our station down in Tampa, but we're going to go see what the damage was like in the Tampa area, right from my friend's mom who's been sick with COVID. I'm going to tell you her story and how she kind of weathered the storm. We're going to look at the damage right outside her home. Should we do that in a couple minutes?
Absolutely. First, let's take a quick break, though, guys. We'll be back here at the Fox 29 Weather Center with the great Drew Anderson talking about the hurricanes and maybe even if you can have 2 in 2 weeks, can you have 3 in 3? We're going to ask Drew that. All coming up. Give me 2 minutes. We'll be back with more Uncut.
All right, hazel eyes.
It's funny. It only stands to reason, Drew. The older you get, the more stories you get. I could take you back again to Hurricane Sandy because that's probably my realest hurricane experience. I was working at a different station at the time, and I had a photographer / editor that I was dropping off at his house in Hoboken. This is right as Sandy is hitting. And we've been out shooting all day about it coming in. So I drop him off at his house in Hoboken, which I don't know if you recall, Hurricane Sandy, all of Hoboken flooded. I dropped him off at his house, drove out south toward Jersey City, and I could see the water coming into the streets in the rearview mirror as I left, and I can't make that up, and I was not able to get him out.
Wow.
His name, was it Seth? I was not able to get him out. He was stuck in his place for like 3 days. He got the story done because he was in there with his laptop banging it out and shooting it out, but I didn't see him again, and we couldn't work for a couple of days because he couldn't get out. I mean, and I literally left as the water was pouring in behind me. I'll remember it for the rest of my life, Drew.
It's fast.
I couldn't believe it.
It's crazy how fast it happens. So I was working in the Lancaster County area. This is going back to the flood of 2011. Hershey Park got flooded.
Oh, yeah.
So the Susquehanna River was flooded up because when it rains, all the rain eventually goes in the streams of creeks. You get flooding there, and then it all comes in the rivers, and then you get river flooding a couple days later. I watched this town flood, Hank. It was insane. So here's what happens. Towns along the Susquehanna River, their storm drains just empty right into the river. Well, when the river floods, guess what happens? The water
backs
up. Right,
just like we did down there on Delaware Avenue. One of these, Drew and I were down on Delaware Avenue watching the Delaware River back up through the drains one time. It did it over the half hour we were on the air. But
yeah, that's right.
It works the same everywhere, doesn't it?
It really does. That's
right. Water goes where it has room to go, and if there's no room for it anymore, it's going somewhere else.
It's going to find a way.
Yeah.
So that area is right underneath the Ben Franklin Bridge where you saw it here. So there, I watched this town flood over the course of 8 hours. And we got to a point where we had to evacuate or we weren't getting out. So it went from nothing in the town at 5 in the morning to then, and this is for real. And then I would say by the 2 p.m. when we left, the water was that high in town. So think about that. No water to this high in 8 hours. That's something.
And it goes back to your original point, guys. Drew was saying the wind is one thing for the hurricane proper, but when it gets down, and my buddy in Orlando was telling me yesterday, yeah, it's windy out, but he goes, and he told me the day before, by the time it hits, it's going to be 70, 80 mile an hour winds, which is not advantageous. You're going to lose some siding, but you're not going to lose the house. But no one makes those kind of dismissals when it comes to the water, which comes right back to what you're talking about. That water is so powerful. You can't stop it. It is fluid. Where it wants to get in, it's going to come in. And once it touches things, your electronics, your circuitry, your wood, you're going to have to deal with mold. It's a whole deal. It's why there's entire companies made just for water remediation. It is bad. It's horrible.
It's just how fast the flooding happens. Like you saw in the rearview mirror. I saw it when it was coming out of the storm drains. In a matter of an hour, you're not even in good shape. Let me show you what some of the damage looked like.
Please do,
So first of all, we have our station in Tampa. We'll check in with them a little bit. They're streaming live, and you can check them out. Just go to Fox 13, Google that.
Well, they're our sister station, too. I got to figure. I was empathizing with the anchors that they had up before, and I got to figure they're riding those anchor chairs for probably 6, 8, 12 hours. I mean, they're not coming off until it's over because all of the stations are going to be feeding off of their content as well. That's the business. You know, if it was hitting us, we'd be sleeping on cots in the newsroom too.
Wouldn't even be a second thought. At the end of the day, our job is to serve the community. We have fun. We enjoy all the stuff we do on Good Day.
I love it. It's wild. It's a full commitment gig. Yeah, I've always loved it though.
But we're here to serve you guys and serve the community. When there's an issue or a situation like this, there's nothing else more in our mind. That's what we're here for. That's like it's our call to action.
It's an existential problem. It threatens our businesses. I don't even think it was a hurricane, but I remember being out in Downingtown when the city hall flooded. City Hall.
Yeah, a couple years back. So that was with Irene, and then I'll never forget just some of the damage just outside of the town. There was macadam, like pavement in a park. It looked like ribbon candy after the power of water. So think about that, like a pavement in a parking lot, and all of a sudden that pavement looks like ribbon.
And macadam, these are like 1,000-pound tiles of concrete. And it's just pulling them up like la-di-da because water can't.
That's the power of the water. All right, so I want to check in. So this is my friend's place. She's in St. Petersburg. She shot a bunch of pictures and videos. She was going to talk with us, but like I said, she had COVID. And what I want to do is I kind of want to scroll down a little bit. I just pulled this up on Facebook. This is as bad as it got for her. So she was really happy about that because that's as much water that came in her home.
Well, it looks like concrete, and maybe that's one of those outer rooms where you don't have. Maybe that's a porch or something.
Could be.
I don't know. It makes you wonder if there had been carpet there. You know.
I was trying to get maybe a better picture of the shingles right there.
I'm just trying to figure out if we can see them very well on TV.
I'll tell you what. I'll take it full screen. Absolutely.
Can you? All right.
Well, of course, yeah. So there's a closer look at it. We got the bigger picture right now.
I don't know how any of this Weather Center gear works.
Isn't this cool?
Like that.
I'm telling you, it's not about the name. It's about the tech. We got some
no
best
question.
Tech,
I know. And knowing how to work
tech.
it. That's why you're the man.
All right. So there's some other pictures. She was taking all of it this morning, and
looks like a grill back there.
She wanted to show us, and she was talking about some of the different gutters.
Once you've just got all this stuff all over the yard, you know what happened. Water carried it there. The water's gone now, but what it did remains.
I think that's more wind than anything.
You think?
Yeah, it's just more wind. She didn't really get it bad. So this is where we were looking at, I think, just that little portion right inside. So she's just giving us a feel. This is just north of Tampa. If you're not familiar with St. Pete, cool place. A lot of big arts community. There are really a lot of good restaurants, but it's all in the same Tampa Bay area.
Tampa, I think, University of Tampa's grown quite a bit. I think they've got a very good arts program.
Oh, it's a great little area. So she's just kind of, okay, so you were absolutely right. That's what got the water. That little room at the end. Let's go back to a little video. And that's the only place. So she was really happy. So let me kind of set the stage about her. So she was in the mandatory evacuation zone. She chose not to evacuate. Again, I respect those decisions. If you have the information, you get to make a decision that works best for you.
You have to.
She's sick as a dog. So she was worried about getting that wall of water. She had the potential for her whole story, 10 feet, this is probably about 10 feet of that to be flooded. So she went upstairs to one of her neighbors that decided to stay and waited out the storm on the second story there, just because that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to be safe. No one knew if they were going to get the water because she's pretty close to the Tampa Bay, like actual bay part too.
Right.
And so she's sick. She's waiting out the storm on the second story. And then she was just so thankful to see that, you saw, for her, it wasn't that bad. And a lot of the reports so far this morning, it wasn't so much the storm itself, but tornadoes it caused.
Yes.
I can't remember in recent times, first of all, hurricanes and tropical storms cause tornadoes, which is crazy.
Which is crazy, and you don't necessarily need them to get them in places like Delco, which gives you all the information that you need to know about global weather change. I've just reported on tornadoes in Delco literally last month. I'm pretty sure it was. I was with Greg Gilroy, and we're going to continue to talk about this, guys. And there's a lot to bring up, including what might be next. Listen, it's not even mid-October yet, and we know hurricane season goes a whole lot longer, and it ain't just Florida. We've gotten our share here. It's asking Drew a lot, but what's to come? We'll find out as best we can coming up on Uncut. Give us 2. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, I got a special surprise for you. This is one of my oldest friends, and he and I have recently reestablished contact. This is Nick, my friend Nick, who lives in the Orlando area. Forgot that we had to get together. He was going to be on Zoom, but he just came out of the yard where he was trying to do some cleaning up. I'm going to hopefully have him mic'd up right here. Nick, I'm with Drew, my meteorologist. Tell me what, are you okay, first of all?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just a little worn out. I stayed up all night riding out. I don't know why I'm a glutton for punishment.
Well, you're worried about your house, I would imagine.
If anything's coming down, I want to see it with my own eyes.
What was it like? How bad was it?
It was probably the worst one so far. There
Wow.
was one about 5 years ago that kind of wobbled towards us, and it was, I think I looked at my notes, and that was probably about 60 miles per hour. See, the thing is, they keep talking about, most of the time, they talk about the gusts being the max speeds, but it doesn't really, it's not like you've got airflow, at say, 60 and then it gusts to 90. It pretty much is a lull, and then it scares the bejesus out of you.
Yeah.
By coming in at 85. So, like I said, that other one I think was about a high of 60. So this was probably about 25 miles an hour higher. So
well, Drew and I were talking
a little bit of a difference.
We were talking a minute ago about the wind being bad enough, but the water being the real horrible culprit. How is your home's relationship with the water right now? Are you more or less dry in comparison to your neighbors?
I'm good. I'm not on a lake or a river or anything usually, and then the rivers, we've learned they start draining, towards their source or from their source to the outlet, a couple days after. But sometimes you also with the wind, sometimes that pushes stuff in. But yeah, I'm not near any of that. So the only thing I had to do is a couple times I had to clear my gutters, because what happens is just a few leaves or acorns
mess up your flow,
up, and it starts gushing over the side, and
Well, to that point about the gutters, so I want to show just a quick picture to everyone watching here at home from my friend in the St. Petersburg area. And she was not only showing us how the gutters were down, but check out this tree right here. I'm going to play this, because you might even hear this. There's alarms that are going off. Listen to that, like a fire alarm. Probably from impacts of things.
Nick, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's a weird piece of video from Drew's friend in St. Pete's. And what do you think those alarms are?
I think it's just
like
the wind's battering. I think
or?
it's a fire alarm from winds battering in parts of nearby buildings. It definitely sounds like a fire alarm to me.
Nick, what's your damage? As we look at this St. Petersburg video in Orlando, it sounds to me like what you said, being away from lakes and rivers and being away from the flooding, maybe the worst that you got would have been from damage. So lay it out. Did you get over, or are you hurt?
I haven't been able to take a walk around the neighborhood. Our area.
Why? How come? How come you haven't been? Too hard to get out?
I finally the other side after the eye went through was actually way more powerful than the first.
So the eye went over your house.
No, it was the south. But
okay.
When I came back around at about 4 o'clock in the morning, it started getting crazy.
Dude, it's scary just hearing you talk about it.
And then I got up at, I stayed out till about 6, because I really thought one of my trees was coming down. But it started, it was the lessening, and then I guess I was too exhausted. So I found myself, I woke up at about 9:30, and it had all passed. So, and then we just have a few more rain bands and stuff like that. But the rest of we've had a couple of these ones that haven't been, this is the third one this year. So,
well, you got a branch on your house last week, right? Are you still dealing with that with Helene?
No, yeah. So with stuff like that, this time I was really scared. I tried to get some tree guys out. I've been trying to do it since the spring, but they couldn't get here in time. So I took it upon myself to try and do it. So that helped a lot. But all those previous storms, and doing some of the stuff myself has lessened. But everything outside my street and everything, it's like, think of a winter snowstorm, but with leaves. And the other thing is all the acorns just started growing. And they added
all over the place.
All the branches and the leaves came back. And Florida's a weird state.
No question.
Trees seem to pollinate 3 times a year or something. So even this one in the back of mine, I don't know why. It's
I can help with that. It's just that because you're warm year round, your growing seasons can be continuous. But I can hear the emotion in your voice right now. Just you at this very moment. What are your feelings? Do you feel relief? Are you anxious?
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel right now?
Oh man, when this stuff happens, you're always like, should I just get out of here and not worry about it? But then you do worry about it, and then you got to fight the traffic coming and going.
Right.
But you start feeling, you get those aches and the tightening, right behind your cerebellum in your neck.
That is high stress, brother. That's all that is.
Yeah. And then then you're you start feeling like grippers, in your heart. You're like, oh my God, is this?
Wow.
Dude, once it gets settled down, you take a walk around the block and get the inventory. I don't care what time it is, 5 o'clock somewhere. You better pour yourself a tall, cold one, Nicky.
Yeah.
All right, listen, we're going to go to a break. And, Drew, I've been promising this for a while. We've got to tease
what's next,
the notion of what might be next. And I was hearing something about the notion of a tropical storm that could come to be with the first initial peak, because that's the next one up after Milton. We'll be back with more Uncut in 2 minutes.
Anybody
Yeah, guys, this is my friend Nick, who lives in Orlando, talking to us on the phone. He was going to Zoom with us, but he was outside in the rain. He's inspecting his house and everything. You know, I get not wanting to Zoom. Nick, thank you again for spending time with us on the phone. And again, he's in Orlando, but Drew and I here in Philadelphia. Drew, I got to ask you, especially with your expertise and the machinery you've got to bring to bear, 2 hurricanes in 2 weeks. What are the odds of 3 in 3 weeks? 4 in 4 weeks? It's starting to feel way too common, nearly apocalyptic, but if we can do this, we could keep on going. Is there anything brewing out there?
All right, so Nick, you can catch your breath. You're in good shape for the next 2 weeks. The reason this stuff has been so strong back to back, the ocean water so crazy strong in the Gulf of Mexico. Let me get you up to speed what's happening right now. Let's head over to the National Hurricane Center. That Leslie you see right there, that's a fish storm. Here's what that means. That sucker's curving out to sea. It's not coming inland.
Why do you call it a fish storm?
Just because it's going out to sea. Here, I'll pull up the track. Here, let's click on it, and you'll see what I mean. It's just going to be the fish that are affected by that. Here's Africa, here's us. And the reason for that is the spin of the earth helps to push a lot of these out to sea. The concern is when the stuff gets brewing and churning in the Gulf of Mexico. If something starts in the Gulf of Mexico, it is coming into our Gulf states or Florida.
If it starts in the Gulf, the only way it can get out is through us or through Cuba and Jamaica. So it's going to wreck somebody on the way out. Like, the hurricanes don't get through gaps like that.
You know, and think of it this way. If these things, because of the spin of the earth, when they kind of go out to sea like that, well, that thing's going to curve up in the United States if it has that kind of force from the U.S. It just all depends on the type of storm. So,
wish for the fish, guys.
Let's take a look right here, just for the next kind of 2 weeks. And Nick, I want to give you a feel. We're going to turn it over right here. I like this website. And by the way, if you want to check this stuff out, you just Google National Hurricane Center. That has the latest on hurricanes. These are our future radars. Google Tropical Tidbits. I love this site. This is the American Future Radar. We're keeping an eye right down here.
How accurate is it when you go that deep in the future?
That's just good. This can nail stuff 2 weeks out as long as it's big. The kind of stuff we're talking about is big. So I'm just going out in time. This is the 18th. And then look at this. So this is what you were talking about right there.
This is the possible P tropical storm?
So I'm not sure the name off the top of my head.
But that's future right there.
But this is future. So this is...
What is that? I can't interpret that. Is that as bad a storm as it looks like?
I would imagine it would be because the water is just so incredibly warm there.
All right.
Here's what we do for long-term
forecasting. We got 30 seconds left. So
real quick. So this far out, you look for a couple people's opinions. Like when you have a big life decision, you get a couple people's opinions. This is the American. I'm going to switch it over to the European. Let's see if that, oh, this one doesn't go out as far. Let's put in the Canadian. And this is what we're going to be watching as we move in time. We're going to keep an eye on that from about a week and a half from now.
Great stuff. Drew Anderson, thank you very much. Guys, we're going to flip it straight to our best friends across the way, Kathy Orr and Bill Anderson on Fox 29 Live, to keep the Milton and Helene conversation going. So in the meantime, Drew, thank you so much. Nick, thank you so much, my brother. I'm glad you're awake, alive, doing well, and laughing your way through it. Ladies and gentlemen of Fox 29 Live.
Okay, so you have Medicare and want to know if you also need Medicaid to receive home care services?
Aurora is your first choice when you need answers fast.
We'll take care of everything for you.
Aurora Home Care, your resource and advocate in home care. Call one of our home care experts today.
We're hot already. That was a quick train changeover.
See you, everybody.
There's the live switch. So, guys, as you know, we have been sitting there talking about everything that's going on. As I get mic'd up, one of the interesting things, the appealing things about everything that we do on Fox Local, Fox 29 Live, Fox Weather Philly, is that you get an opportunity to see some of the behind the scenes and the things that take place as we are working to get things up and running. Drew, thank you for getting everything together there. Of course, Kathy Orr is here. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a little bit of an emotional roller coaster with this story.
It has. And you guys have been following this now for a solid week.
Yeah,
kind
at
of getting
least
ready for it.
A couple of weeks ago, it was an area of disturbed weather in the Gulf of Mexico that we were watching, and we kept saying this has a 20% chance of developing, a 40% chance, and then late last week, it didn't really look like much, and then all of a sudden, last weekend, it blew up, right? It went from a tropical storm to a Category 1 hurricane, and then from a 1 to a 5 almost overnight earlier this week. So it's been a very short period of time for people to prepare for this, and to have something so strong and so dangerous to have to deal with on the heels of Helene is remarkable and devastating.
But it played out. You and I were talking before we came in here, and I was asking, obviously, because you and Drew and the whole Weather Authority have been tracking this, and you just talked about that. Did it play out pretty much as expected?
It did. We were forecasting it to become a Category 4 storm and then a Category 3 at landfall, which it did, and to make landfall somewhere between Sarasota, maybe a little bit north or south, but it was leaning more northward. Made landfall at Siesta Key, which is a barrier island outside of Sarasota. A beautiful place, too. If you've ever been to any of those barrier islands, Siesta Key is one of the most beautiful beaches in the country. And so it made landfall there. And they got the wind in Sarasota, but Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater got the rain. I mean, we're talking about a flood emergency. And we can take a look at some of these pictures. Drew, we can see where the storm is right now offshore. And there it is as a Category 1 in the Atlantic. And thanks, Drew. Drew's going to zoom out for us. But you can see it exited right around Daytona Beach, and now a Category 1, you know, well to the north of the Bahamas, but still bringing tropical storm force gusts there.
So then, for all intents and purposes, this has run its course, and we have seen the worst of what we're going to see.
Yes.
Okay, so this part of it is done. So for the next 25 minutes or so, we kind of want to recap, see what's going on. There's a lot of people who went through a lot.
Yeah.
We've got folks, you've got family.
Yeah, in Sarasota,
so we've got to touch base with people all throughout. We've got pictures of some of the damage that is taking place, kind of where we stand right now in various places throughout Florida. Depending on what happens with the video, you can see in the monitors behind us, that is a live feed from our sister station in Tampa. So we're going to spend this time kind of getting you all caught up on everything that's taking place.
Yeah, so the storm made landfall, just really quick to recap that, 8:30 last night. It accelerated. The timing was all over the place. 8:30, then it was 2 o'clock in the morning, then it was back and forth because there were uncertainties on the speed of the storm. The hurricane hunters go in, they spend 10 hours in a plane crisscrossing in an X formation and dropping down instruments into the center of the storm to find out exactly where it is and how strong it is. And they came back with, oh no, this is accelerated and it's a little bit farther north and ahead of the forecast. So they send all that information to the Hurricane Center, and that's how we get these forecasts. So if it weren't for them, we wouldn't know exactly when this would be hitting. And so a couple hours before, we knew exactly it was going to be around 8:30, and it was going to be very close to Sarasota. So thank goodness to all those folks that work for NOAA to get us that type of information.
What's interesting, and we're going to take our first break, and we're kind of pulling together things. We're going to give you the visuals. We're going to talk to people. But what's interesting about it is you heard people that Hank and Drew were talking to. We both have friends. Pretty much everybody in this area has some connection to someone there.
Absolutely.
So we've all been touching base. It's interesting how different the experiences are. So we've heard people who say, my power didn't even go out, wasn't that big a deal, the surge wasn't as bad as last time, months or so ago. Then we've had people like the stories that you've experienced and we're going to share, where whole buildings are shaking and power going out and just
scary.
Devastating.
Yeah, and the top of Tropicana Field where the Rays play was blown off, and that was a shelter. That's right in downtown St. Pete. So, a lot of people's experience is definitely different. And today, we're going to see what that storm surge did, because last night it was too dark. We couldn't see anything. We saw the flooding in Tampa, 16 inches of rain in Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater, which is, we can't even wrap our heads around in the Northeast.
Let's see if we can find that video or that picture of Tropicana Field. Let's take our first break. This is Fox 29 Live and Fox Weather Philly working together to get you caught up on everything that happened with the hurricane. Quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk to some of the people who actually were right there experiencing it as it happened. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Live and Fox Weather Philly coming together to kind of give people the aftermath of everything, the hurricane. So going to break, you were talking about what happened at Tropicana Field.
Yes, and we have that picture to show everybody. It's right behind us. Look at this. This was a shelter for folks who had to evacuate, and you can see the top. Looks like it could be a tarp. Not a tarp. They're much stronger than that.
Yeah.
But parts of the roof blown off. And this is right when you're driving from Sarasota and you're going to downtown St. Pete or going to the beach. You get off right here, and it's just sitting there. And so a huge structure, not far from the beach. But can you imagine? You can see
that was the
you can see the field. You can see the grass and everything in there. And this, it's just amazing to me.
And
that
significant damage.
Significant.
Thankfully, again, we're not hearing that anybody in there were any problems with people who were using it as a shelter. But looking at the damage,
Yeah, it's
Wow.
pretty significant, and that's supposed to be a safe place.
Yeah.
That's why they were saying you got to get out. You got to get out of town. Now, we have a good friend that's in Orlando. He's from Moorestown, New Jersey, went to University of Tampa, now works in Orlando. This is Chris Pelko. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Chris and I go back many years. His mom's a dear friend of mine, and I'm sure she's very worried about you. How are you doing today?
I'm all good, Kathy. We're all good down here in Orlando, Sunshine State. Not so sunny right now, but we made it through the storm. We made it through the thick of it, so I'm good.
So tell us about kind of going through that. We're hearing all sorts of different stories. Some, it was terrifying. Others saying just seemed like a bad rainstorm. What was it for you?
Yeah, so pretty much all day yesterday, just bad rainstorms. Winds were picking up. We were really expecting it to hit a lot harder, but not too much around here. I'm about 15 minutes off downtown. I got Planet Hollywood in my background right there. It wasn't too bad, to say the least, but I know in some areas of Orlando, it definitely got worse.
Now, Chris, last night we were texting, and you had said that you were ready for everything. You're on the 3rd floor. It looks like a concrete structure, so it looks like where you are is pretty secure. Did most folks stay?
Yeah, actually, the building was pretty packed out. I'm in a hurricane-proof apartment, thank the Lord for that, but we had a lot of people around here. I got a hotel right behind me. It's all packed out. It's all hurricane-proof. None of these buildings are going to go down anytime soon. Thank God for that.
So that's an interesting dynamic for people here who may not fully understand that. The buildings themselves, as one of the move-in selling points, I guess, they publicize that you're living in a hurricane-proof structure?
Yeah, well, hurricanes come along a lot around here, so it's important to have a hurricane-proof structure to make sure you and your families are safe during these times.
Chris, what was it like there? I mean, you're from Jersey, and you just moved down. I know you went to UT. Have you talked to a lot of your friends? Did they evacuate Tampa? What's it like there? Have you heard?
Yeah, I'm actually with my buddy right here who's sitting in his car, but he evacuated Tampa, and it was pretty rough out there. So they just told everyone, like the mayor said bluntly, if you don't get out, you're going to die. So we needed everyone to get out. So I told him, come here. He'll be safe here. And we're worried about his house, but for right now, we're happy that he's okay.
So he hasn't heard anything about the area that he evacuated? Any updates on his house and location?
We were hearing some rumblings of people were not exactly allowed to go back in, like right into downtown Tampa or anything like that, but I'm not too sure about the validity of that.
Now, Chris works in the entertainment industry. I know you're working for Hard Rock as well right now. Have you heard anything about Disney World or Universal Studios? Because I know you're in their backyard there.
Yeah, I live pretty close to Universal. I heard Disney World was closed for today, and I'm assuming tomorrow as well, just to be safe. But as far as Hard Rock goes, it's a 20-year-old building. It's a great venue if anyone wants to come out and support, but I'm not too sure how it's going to be after this storm.
We are happy that you are in good enough shape that we're getting a plug-in for a place of business. That's always a positive thing. I know you just wanted to check in, make sure things are good.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you taking some time with us.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Be well.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
Wow.
And that speaks to what we were talking about, that there's just so many different experiences there. Some people were leaving that area where he was.
Yes.
Others were coming and using it as the shelter.
Absolutely. And like you said, it depends on where you were. He was in a concrete structure. And I was told recently by a friend of mine that's a hurricane expert that when you buy a house in Florida, you need to check your attic to see, because there's metal straps that strap your roof to your walls. Interesting. Okay. Don't have to worry about that in the Delaware Valley. But if you're in Florida and you're worried about losing your roof in a hurricane, that's something to think about. Also, they had about 85, 90 mile an hour winds there last night. So, yeah, I mean, some areas felt it more than others as the storm went through.
We need to take another break. And thank you, Drew, who has stayed and is pulling up all of the different shots. And you say it, and Drew finds a way to get it up on the screen. Do we have that? We had a 4-shot.
Yes.
That was kind of showing all of the different things.
Our quad box.
That were there. The quad box.
Yes,
we
there's
don't
a name
have
for
the
that.
quad box on our show. So this is kind of giving people various looks at places throughout Florida and kind of where it stands right now. And from these, I mean, Sarasota looks like there's, at least some windblown, some wet. streets. But all of them, all in all, look decent. Hillsborough Bay, some flooding.
Yeah, that you can tell is the debris after a lot of heavy rain. We were watching that camera last night, and it was like a river. It had like little white caps on it. That's how bad that was earlier. So that's something to see. Now in the aftermath or in daylight, people obviously, like Chris said, maybe they're allowed to go back, maybe they're not, because are the roads passable? Is there power? My niece is in Sarasota, and her boyfriend didn't have any power. She said it was extremely hot and obviously uncomfortable. Sarasota Bradenton Airport had a wind gust of 102 miles an hour. So depending on where you are, you could be down the street, and it could be a lot worse depending on your neighborhood.
We need to take our next break. Coming back, we're going to speak to one of those people who was a little closer to everything that was going on, was in the middle of it, actually experienced some of the impact of it. That's coming up next. It's Fox 29 Live and Fox Weather Philly just the day after, right? Getting you caught up on all things Hurricane Milton. Stay with us. Be right back. Fox 29 Live and Fox Weather Philly. And so we've been talking about different experiences. This is Grace.
Hi.
She is a new member of the Fox 29 family. We're going to share mics a little bit. But you've been through this as you were working down in that area.
Yeah, so I was working in Fort Myers during Hurricane Ian. Our station actually flooded while I was there, and we had to get rescued. So I went through that entire experience, being in the station, getting the news to people on air, but also having to be in the situation to get rescued, taken to a shelter, and then the aftermath as well.
What's that like? Like, we're hearing stories from people about how emotional. Kathy, you had an expert on yesterday talking about the trauma that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely, and having to relive it time and time.
Yeah, it was scary when I saw that this storm was hitting, close to home again, to the friends and family that I have down there still. I think in those times, it's very important, even though something scary is coming at you, think of the good at the end of the day. Like, you are safe, you're okay, and material things are washing away. But stay safe and stay calm in the panic. And I know that's a hard thing to say, especially, I was seeing it hit. I saw our station start to flood. Obviously, I'm panicking. But I looked at my meteorologist then and I said, he's okay. He's still saying calm. Let me stay calm at the same time.
What's interesting about that? Yeah, because does that mean something to you?
Does,
like, we're all counting on you to keep us calm.
A long time ago, a mentor said to me, you are the last line of calm. And I always thought about that during severe situations, whether they be blizzards or tornado warnings. For us, we had Hurricane Sandy, and that was, such a shock back then. But tornadoes were a very big deal to us, because I remember it was one of the first times I had ever said there's a tornado on the ground, and that was in the Cherry Hill, Voorhees area. And that's something that we never had really encountered here. So it was something that was said to me a long time ago, and then I just felt that in my career. And then recently, one of my interns is down in Raleigh, and he recently got back to me and said, "Remember you told me that?" I had just experienced that myself. So it's a good lesson to learn and to pay it forward to the up-and-comers, because it's definitely true. I'm so glad you said that. It definitely means something now, Grace.
Yes.
Throwing out the profound statement. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's not just me who finds calm in Kathy Orr because she's so informed and knowledgeable. Everybody's finding that.
Everyone, anchors, meteorologists, everybody in that state, they're looking to you. And if they see you calm, they kind of feel a little bit a sense of calmness too, and they're like, we're going to get through this, we're going to be okay. It's scary right now, but at the end of the day, we're going to be okay. Let's look at them. They're the experts here.
And you know what, coming from New Jersey, growing up in Washington Township, and then working down there, I'm sure that was quite a shock, culture shock.
It was a shock. I was here for Sandy, but again, I was young. I wasn't really thinking much.
You're still young.
Thank you. It was a shock, especially when we got rescued and I saw all the damage firsthand at, I want to say we were rescued around 2, 3 a.m. So everything's still dark, but you're seeing everything down. But I want to say, lean on your community in that point of time, too. Everyone's out there to help. I remember our station, we went out to help clean up things. Friends and family, everybody wants to help you. But it's really leaning on everyone around you in that time, because it can be scary. It definitely was.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine can you imagine being rescued from work? I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Profound comment.
I know.
We'll take a break.
Thank
It's
you,
almost
Grace.
like a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. We will come back. We're trying to get one more person who is there up for the Zoom. Thank you. I didn't expect that. We should have her on your show more often.
Yes, Grace, you're booked.
It's good stuff. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Fox 29 Live, Fox Weather Philly, and our newest correspondent, Grace. We'll be right back. Fox 29 Live on Fox Local, Fox Weather Philly, kind of getting everybody caught up, the aftermath of Hurricane Milton.
Yes, inches of rain, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, even Tampa, 16 plus inches of rain. And that was as of last night, so the totals haven't completely come in yet. Also, there was a record number of tornadoes issued in the state of Florida yesterday because of this storm. So everybody was impacted for the most part with this, and still millions of people without power. So is just crazy. And a lot of these pictures tell the story as well.
One of the challenges that we are facing, and really everybody is facing, is that people that you have scheduled, people that you want to talk to, they're dealing with power outages and cell phone signals dropping and all of those things. So one of our guests are having a little challenge trying to get back with us.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because Drew has been here throughout, helping get everything up on screen. Also was with Hank for the 11 o'clock show. But Drew, so come with us. I'm going to go ahead and share this microphone with you. So you were telling stories of a friend of yours who was there, decided to stay, facing some challenges.
So this is my best friend's mom.
Okay.
She moved from here down to Tampa, right? She wanted the Florida lifestyle.
Of course, yeah, it's nice, right?
She's loving it up until this summer. She just moved in last year, and for her, she is really, really sick with COVID. She was going to talk to us, but she doesn't even have a voice today. So she had to go through this with COVID. She chose not to leave. She went up to the second floor of our apartment complex and waited out the storm with a friend. And we have some video that she shot. So for her in the St. Petersburg area, it was not as bad as they were bracing for because they didn't know, right? They could have gotten that storm surge in her whole downstairs apartment. That's what she was expecting, Kathy and Bill. She was expecting that it was going to be flooded.
Wow, she was lucky because other parts, I mean, we just saw the roof blown off of Tropicana Field. That's in St. Petersburg. You know, neighborhood to neighborhood could be different. And the 16 inches of rain, you know, that fell at the airport. So depending on where you were. I mean, these pictures are incredible too, Drew. Is this the same area?
Yeah, this is right outside where she lives. This is the same apartment complex. You can see how the power of the winds brought that large tree down. And that's a picture we're seeing again and again. For me, what really sets the stage is you see the fence in this video right there.
Yeah.
And that just shows you some of the power, not only the power that we're seeing out of the storm, but just what's left, how we pick up the pieces.
And yeah, that's amazing.
Another interesting part about that, and the reason it kind of resonated with me is Kathy, the friend, unfortunately, that we couldn't get on, was there. Power went out. They were having to kind of deal with all of the aftermath. And Drew, you were explaining, and the audio in one of these were these sirens that were continuing to go off. And that's what a lot of people were kind of dealing with.
This is the sound in Florida right now, the fire alarms of buildings. The alarms are going off just because of the power of the winds just whacking into these buildings and things that have fallen on the buildings. It triggered the fire alarms.
Yeah, and that's scary too. And if you've ever experienced being in an area too that has tornado warning sounds and alarms, it's awful. And it's very, very scary. And that's why I feel so grateful that we're in the Delaware Valley, because we don't have to deal with these types of, you know, weather disasters. But this is amazing. I mean, you can even look in some of these places, Drew, you know, the debris. And then there was one photo where the car was perfectly fine, parked there, but, you know, a neighbor's car may not be fine. So it's, you know, these folks have to walk out and clean up a lot. And for others, pieces of their homes may be gone.
Didn't we have that quad box that you were talking about?
Yes.
Did we lose because one of the shots earlier in that quad box, I don't know if it's still there because those cameras are live. And so as people go through and clean up, but there was a boat that was there and was kind of half balanced and looked as if the boat, it looks as if the camera has moved. I think it may have been in that Hudson area, because that looks like a boat dock kind of area or a port. But there was a boat that was balancing and looked at it as if it had been blown partially up onto the dock.
Exactly. And I think there's going to definitely be a lot of that. This picture in the lower left, Sarasota, that's a very popular area called St. Armand's Circle. There's a lot of shopping that goes on there. And Helene severely flooded that area. So you have to think about the compound impact of this. So Helene comes through, devastates with flooding and rain and storm surge, and then this comes in. So it's kind of like a 1-2 punch. A lot of folks were impacted by that, and then you're thinking about, you know, what this is going to do. We're going to see more pictures coming out later today and tonight that I think are going to be jaw-dropping.
Well, and I think that's another reason why staying with Fox Local all the time. Obviously, Fox Weather Philly, they will have more pictures, more video, perhaps more people. Part of the reason we wanted to do this, we've got about 1 minute as we sign off, your friend needed to let his family know he's okay.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there who are still trying to get in touch, and so kind of showing this helps, we hope, give you some comfort in knowing that people are mostly okay in this circumstance.
Yeah, and they heeded the warning, and that's why, right? A lot of folks were hesitant and with Helene, and when Helene came through and was just more devastating than anybody thought, it was time to go this time. So that's the good news.
That's it for us, guys. Thanks for spending some time with us. Stay tuned to Fox Local, fox29.com, Fox 29. These guys will get you through it, all of the information. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Kathy.
Our pleasure.
And thank all of you. Guys, have a good one. We'll see you in a little bit.